I'm not sure why Chrystia Freeland was appointed finance minister. She has no training in the subject. She went to school studying Slavic matters, language, geography, which are interesting things, but have nothing to do with economics or finance. She was an absolute disaster when she was appointed an executive for Thomson Reuters, a large news company. She was put in charge of something called Reuters Next, and she actually destroyed the entire company. Once she was done with it, they didn't try and fix it. They threw it out. She lost hundreds of jobs and tens of millions of dollars, an absolute meltdown. And you could see in it the descriptions of how she would ignore advice, bring in her personal friends, money was no object, sort of a premonition for how she would run Canada. And of course, she was right up Trudeau's alley. Never forget that Chrystia Freeland's job before she became an MP was George Soros's authorized biographer. That's really what she did. No wonder she's been appointed finance minister. One last tidbit before I show you a video, and you'll understand why I'm talking about Chrystia Freeland, is she lived in the States, she jetted around the world. She came back to Canada as a favor to us to run for Parliament. You would think someone who had held high positions at Reuters and was probably making close to $1 million a year would have saved up to a few bucks. But even 10 years ago, she couldn't afford a home in Canada. Now, I'm not mocking or laughing. It's extremely expensive to buy a home in Canada. In Toronto and Vancouver these days, the average home is more than $1 million. But 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. And she was a grown woman, an MP. Her husband was working too. And yet she needed her parents to co-sign her mortgage for her, to make the down payment for her. And I'm not laughing at someone for being poor. I'm not laughing at someone for not having $1 million that they can borrow in their own credit. I'm not saying $1 million cash. She couldn't even get credit for that. I'm saying these are warning signals that maybe she has no clue how to manage her own money or a business's money, in the case of Reuters Next, and you want to put her in charge of the economy? Well, look at Chrystia Freeland just the other day, talking about how she thinks the economy works and how she thinks people should consider taxes. Take a look at this monstrosity.
Do you want to live in a country where the only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are those with parents who can help with the down payment? Do you want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in healthcare, in housing, in old age pensions, but we lack the political will to pay for them and choose instead to pass a ballooning debt onto our children? Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but must do so in gated communities behind ever higher fences using private health care and airplanes? Because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the vast majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot. Every Canadian across our great country needs to ask themselves these same questions, because the stakes could not be higher.
Oh my God, what a wacko. Oh, I've got a lot to say about this, as you can guess. But let me bring in an expert. I'm talking about Franco Terrazzano. He's the boss of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I had no idea the stakes were this high. Franco, if we don't raise taxes, by the way, it's been 9.5 years of Liberal government. If we don't raise taxes right now, we're going to turn into some, I don't know, Blade Runner, RoboCop dystopian place where people are hiding with their private jets behind gated. I don't even know what that was all about. Franco, do you want to take a first stab at it?
I mean, all this government does is raise taxes and waste our money. So like, what are they talking about? There's so much to pick at there. But first, can I just state the obvious? Did the finance minister just warn about adding debt onto the backs of future generations? Like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? I mean, as of this year, the Trudeau government will have officially doubled the entire federal government debt. 9 years, doubled the entire federal debt by adding $600 billion onto the debt tab. Well, who's going to be paying for that? Canadians' kids and grandkids, future generations of Canadians will be making payments on the debt for their whole lives. So, like, I don't think Canadians buy that line of argument from the finance minister or the Trudeau government. But you know what I think that Freeland and Trudeau really have to worry about here are Canadians who are absolutely fed up about being overtaxed, all the tax hikes that we're seeing, and the federal government wasting our money like crazy.
You know, I'm glad you focused on that debt part, because that's insane for the Liberals to pretend they care about the debt. I mean, you probably know the stats off the top of your hat of how much they've added to the debt. I don't know that figure without looking it up, but I think the largest deficit in Canadian history was actually run under Justin Trudeau. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm not putting you on the spot with
No. During the COVID years, I mean, remember the massive deficits that we were seeing.
Yeah.
You said, look, when Trudeau first came to power, the debt was like $616 billion. The debt today is more than $1.2 trillion.
Oh my!
So the Trudeau government,
he's doubled it.
So the Trudeau government has doubled the federal debt. And Ezra, to your point, they don't care about the deficit. I mean, come on. They don't care about the debt. They've proven to taxpayers that they do not care about fiscal responsibility. This is fiscal insanity. I mean, listen to this, folks. They're hiking the capital gains tax. This is a massive tax hike, and the government is still running a $40 billion deficit this year. Okay, the capital gains tax increase will cost Canadians about $7 billion this year. But with Trudeau spending $535 billion this year, he's going to blow through that extra cash in less than 7 days.
Oh, my gosh. Now, that's what this is. This is her sales pitch for her increase in capital gains tax. And I think what she's trying to do is do a bash the rich. Only rich people get capital gains. This is about, I think she actually said, I don't know if it was in this clip or I think it was another one where she talked about the 0.013% as if it was just an obscure group of billionaires. I think she implied people with private jets. But that's not who pays capital gains tax. Tell me about the typical Canadian. Sketch for me an example of a Canadian who would be taxed under the capital gains tax. I got a few ideas, but taxpayers is your business. Tell me who will be hit by this.
What about doctors? You know, doctors who spend their whole career saving lives and now just want to save for their retirement. Well, they're going to get hammered by the capital gains tax increase. Or what about, your small business owner who doesn't have a government pension, so relies on capital gains to fund their golden years, right? So essentially, the government is going after entrepreneurs, going after, professionals like doctors, also, like to state the obvious, discouraging young, smart computer science grads who graduate from a Canadian university who want to start like the next Amazon here in Canada, but now are being chased away to other places because of this capital gains tax increase and all the other tax hikes that the federal government is doing. But, let's go back to that political wedge here for a second, okay? Because like Trudeau and Freeland are talking about how they want the rich to pay more. Well, how about you just make rich multinational corporations pay for their own factories, right? Like, let's not pretend like the federal government didn't just announce billions of dollars for the boardrooms in Germany and Japan, right? The billions of dollars going to multinational corporations from taxpayers to corporations like Volkswagen, Honda, Stellantis, and companies like that. So you want to make the rich pay their fair share? Well, how about you just cut out all this corporate welfare going to multinational corporations?
Yeah, that's a great point. They're giving money to some of the most profitable foreign countries and companies in the world. And I suppose money is fungible, but they're getting it. I mean, tell me if this is an example of someone who, I'm not a tax expert, so Franco, correct me if I'm wrong. So let's say someone's a plumber. And they save up a few bucks and get their own equipment, get their own truck, and hire some other guys. And soon they've got a couple trucks and a couple guys. And soon they built up a bit of a plumbing company. And you work your fingers to the bone for 50 years, and then you retire and you sell that thing. Is that an example of a capital gains? Is that a scenario?
Well, those are similar. Those are things that could happen here, or just people who have like other like real estate properties because they don't have the government funded pension that all the bureaucrats in Ottawa essentially do, right? So one other thing, Jack Mintz, a famous economist who was at the University of Calgary, rightly pointed out that it's not the same people every single year who are making these capital gains, right? Like many Canadians will make capital gains, or many different Canadians will make capital gains in different years as they sell some of these assets, for example, to fund their golden years. So it's not like the government is just going after like a couple people who have all these bags of money. Like this is going to have real life implications for Canadians who are getting ready to retire.